Greenwood, and he's here with us. Sam's going to be talking about foundations of physical well-being today. Sam's going to help you better understand the importance of holistic approach to health through the 4 key pillars of movement, nutrition, mindset, and recovery. He will share simple tips on habits formation and powerful knowledge on foundational concepts to start or continue your health journey while avoiding common obstacles that often derail you. You will be inspired to start your journey to shift your identity and achieve your desired results through physical and mental health. Sam has spent 15 years in the fitness industry and hundreds of hours studying everything from rehab and corrective movement to strength and conditioning, Olympic lifting, functional training, gymnastics, and hand balancing. He previously competed as a Muay Thai fighter and has spent many years training in a multitude of martial arts. As Sam coaches others to improve their lifestyle, he uses his business, Fit Academy, as an avenue to coach good quality movement and restore function for his members to live as close to pain-free as possible, shifting their mindset to have a positive impact on their health and understanding more about foundational principles of nutrition with physical and mental recovery. In addition, Sam spends time mentoring other coaches and facilitating professional development courses through his business for personal trainers to improve their own knowledge and skills to pass on to their clients. It is my pleasure to welcome Sam Greenwood.
Thanks very much, Lara. I appreciate it. And thank you very much to Erica as well. It was a really good talk. And there's quite a few things that carry across quite nicely to what I'm going to speak about with the foundations of physical well-being and how that has an impact on the physical body too. So there's a few things that I'll actually bring up that she mentioned and how that kind of relates to how we move as humans and how our bodies work. So I've got a presentation here that I'm going to share with you guys. So foundations of physical well-being. As Lara mentioned in my introduction, there's a couple of key pillars of holistic health that we deliver for our clients and our coaches and that kind of thing. So I'm going to take you through a few. We have 5 pillars, but we're only going to focus on the first few and more the physical body. And throughout the course of this presentation, what I'm going to do is take you first through more macro overview of health. But then we're going to start to get a little bit more specific around some tangible tools that you guys can use for your physical body. And then we're kind of going to go macro again and just talk about some of the key concepts. So the pillars that we have are mindset, movement, nutrition, recovery, and community. So through the course of this, we're going to focus on, like I mentioned, the first few, in particular, mindset, movement, and nutrition. They're the ones that have the biggest impact on your physical body. Recovery is also obviously essential, and community, to be involved in a community and have those social connections, is going to make such a huge impact on your ability to continue that physical journey, as you would have heard from listening to Erica's talk. So where do we begin? We set goals not to achieve the end result, but to become the person who achieves the things we desire, to be better than the person we were yesterday. So this is why it's so important to start at this mindset pillar, because we need to start thinking like the person that we want to become, whether that's physically or mentally. We need to start to introduce ourselves to a new state of being so that we can then follow that through with our physical actions. And so as we go in through this first pillar, we're going to start to talk about a bit of a change continuum, because that's essentially what we're looking for, or that's essentially what we're doing here, is how do we change and shift our mindset and our bodies and our nutrition and our movement in order to elicit a result that is going to give us the physical goal that we're trying to achieve. So when we look at this change continuum, we can see that the first stage is around goal setting. This is really important because if you don't have a direction, then it's going to make it really challenging for you to be able to uh, have any sort of purpose or intent with the behavior change you're trying to introduce. So we set the goals first, and then we work on changing our behavior. And over the course of that, as our behavior changes, we start to form habits that then become our new identity. And so at that point, we're then we can introduce a new person, because it's not just about setting a goal and achieving that goal. It's about, when we set a goal, over the journey, in order to achieve that, we have to change who we are. We have to change elements of who we are. We have to introduce habits that we haven't previously been performing, and then we become the type of person who consistently gets the results that we want. So you may have a goal for yourself that might be something around, putting on muscle. It might be a body composition change, reduction of fat. It might be a skill that you're trying to achieve, hand balancing, or a gymnastics skill, or a weightlifting skill. It could be that you want to improve your strength or increase your cardiovascular fitness, or it could be something to do with sport specific, or maybe you just want to be able to feel better, move better, live pain-free, or as close to pain-free as possible, and not be worried so much about restricted movement. Whatever that is, in order for you to achieve that, obviously you need to set a goal, and you've got to start to implement some behaviors and some habits that are going to help you get that result. If you live the same way you currently live, then that's not going to necessarily elicit the change that you're looking for. So over a period of time, by changing those habits, or introducing new habits, you're then essentially changing the person that you are. From that stage, it's not just about the goal that you initially set. Now you're the type of person who knows how to introduce habits, who knows how to change behavior, and then that consistently will lead you to a change of identity and more results, and achieving more and more goals that you're looking for. So this change continuum is a really valuable kind of process to understand, that we need to set goals to have a direction, but then we have to consistently change that behavior to build the habits to change the identity. So I'm sure all of you guys have some form of goal. What I'd love for everyone to do now is write down one thing. What's one key element that you're looking to achieve with your physical health? Just one thing, and I'm going to give you just like 30 to 60 seconds to write one thing down. What's something that you would like to see over the next, could be short term, could be mid-term, could be long term, with your physical health? Why this is so important is, when you have that goal, it determines and helps dictate your direction and the intention of all of your choices, all of your behaviors, all of your priorities from here on out. When you're then from this point on attempting to create a new identity or to achieve a goal, one and the same, then you're going to have more purpose. You can lay out your priorities a little bit more succinct, so you can go, all right, well, if this is what I'm trying to achieve, then this is up the top of my priority list. If it's up the top of my priority list, it starts to take away some of the decision fatigue that we get. So rather than going, do I go to the gym? Do I not go to the gym? I'm pretty tired today. I'm pretty exhausted. Do I go home and meal prep the food that I know I should be eating? Do I get something from Uber Eats? Rather than trying to decide what it is that I need to do, you've already laid out your priorities. You can even write these down somewhere. Write them down next to your goal. Write them down on your fridge, on a whiteboard at the end of the bed, so you see them every morning as you wake up, on the mirror in the bathroom, wherever. You write down your priorities, so now your decisions don't become so difficult. It's not a matter of okay, do I need to get ready for have my bag ready for training this afternoon? Do I need to make sure I go to the grocery stores tonight so I'm going to have the food that I need to prep over the weekend? That decision doesn't need to be made anymore. It's already made. You made it when you decided what your goal was because you've set intentions. You've got a clear purpose now. You don't need to decide about that anymore. The decision's made. So you have a look at your top priority. Cool. Have I fulfilled that? Yes. What's the next priority? Have I fulfilled that? And now you can start to allocate your time a little easier because you know what the number one priority is, and spend a bit of time doing this. Yeah, like I've given you 30 to 60 seconds uh, to write down one kind of goal that you want to work on with your physical health. Spend a bit of time building more around this. Okay, so I've got my physical health, of my physical health goal. I know what I want to achieve there. What are the priorities that I have to do to achieve that? What does my movement look like? And you can refer back to the pillars that we use. What does my movement look like? What does my nutrition look like? What does my mindset look like? What's my recovery look like? Because without a lot of those elements, you're not going to be able to fulfill this goal. So write down those priorities, spend some time doing that, make sure it fits in with the other priorities so we don't have these competing priorities that are both at the same level. How does that fit in with the rest of my priorities? How does it fit in with my family? How does it fit in with my career? How does it fit in with my hobbies? And now, once you've spent time going through that, we can reduce that decision fatigue. It's not now, what do I choose because I really want to do this and I really want to do that. You've already made the decision. The decision was made when we goal set it 2 or 3 weeks ago or however long ago it was. That decision was made, and I've committed to this amount of time to achieve this goal. So for that duration of time, along that timeline, this is what I'm going to dedicate towards that goal. The decisions are already made. So this is where, from here on out, we can start to lay out what that looks like from a habit point of view. What habits do I need to get in order to take steps forward? Well, I probably need a habit of movement. We've got a couple of goals in here about increasing movement and fitness, building endurance, body recomp. All these things need a consistency of movement. They need a consistency of healthy eating and making sure that you're, attentively eating, not just eating whatever's there. You're paying attention. You don't even have to necessarily be tracking, but you do need to be paying clear attention to what you're eating rather than just fueling the body. So all these things are now starting to come a little bit easier from a mindset point of view of where am I going? What direction am I going in? And I can make decisions before that time occurs that I actually need to make it. And then when you get to an end of a hard work day, or you get to the weekend and you feel like you just want to relax, the decision's already made. It's time to act on that. So from a mindset point of view, these are some of the key elements that we want to do to be able to build out our direction and intention. In terms of actions, to wrap up that mindset section, figure out what that goal is. Write that one goal down. Write down your priorities. What are the priorities that I need to align in order to achieve this goal? Then pick 1 to 2, 3 at absolute most habits that you believe you need in order to achieve that goal. Write the goal, set the priorities to help you make the decision beforehand, and then what are the habits that will lead you there? Let's talk about movement. So at our club, so we've got a club, we do work online, and we've got a brick and mortar business in Thomastown in Melbourne. And at our club, we have this movement journey that we coach our coaches and our clients in. So this pyramid is set up in a way with a strong foundation. So we have a foundation of function first, and that is integral. We need to build a foundation of function before we can start to layer other goals on top of that. Once we have, and when I say function, what I mean is being able to move the way, being able to move as effectively as possible the way that humans are designed to move, being able to move in all planes of motion. And when I say planes of motion, I mean what's called sagittal, backwards and forwards, frontal, side to side, and transverse, rotational. We need to be able to move in all of those positions and train in all of those positions, because if we don't, what happens as a result is when we do go to move in those positions in everyday life, something breaks down because it's not strong. And then building a foundation is also being able to move in foundational movement patterns, being able to push things, being able to pull things, being able to squat down, being able to lunge, being able to hinge your hips back, being able to rotate, and being able to move through a gait cycle in a strong position. And when I say gait, I mean a walking or running or a jumping or a stepping. So we've got to be able to move in all of those ways. We've got to be able to train in all of those ways to build a strong foundation. You can't build strength or power or learn skills or lose body weight or do any of those things if you don't move well, because it's just like the foundations of a building. If you have really poor foundations on a building, trying to layer a lot of weight on top of that is not going to go so well. So if you're trying to increase the pace at which you move, or you're trying to increase the weight that you can move, or you're trying to learn new skills with your body, but you can't move effectively, what's going to happen is a dysfunction within your body will become quite apparent. And so as a result, something will break down. And that doesn't mean, and this is really important, that doesn't mean that that exercise that you did is bad for you, that weight lift that you lifted is bad for you, because it wasn't then and there that the dysfunction became apparent. It was that action was the straw that broke the camel's back. And so why this is really important is so often in fitness, we hear people say, no, that piece of equipment's not good for me, or that exercise that I did was really bad for me. It was that the foundations weren't laid correctly. So then trying to layer things on top started to break the system down. It was too much stress, right? So this is important because to achieve results, we have to do things consistently. We have to do things over a period of time. And what will stop us from doing that is being injured or being so sore that you don't want to train and you lose motivation. None of that is beneficial for our longevity when it comes to training or moving. So we need to build the foundation of function. And I'm spending a lot of time on this because we're about to talk more about it. And this is where we start to go a little bit more micro and give you guys some tangible tools or concepts around movement. Once we create that brain to body connection, and picking up on one of the things that Erica said about, she said, learning more about language is so important because it helps us check in with where we're at. Learning more about how we move is so important because it helps us understand what's going on with our own body. And what we really encourage with our clientele is trying to create that brain to body connection so that everyone has an understanding of what they should be feeling when they move. Without that understanding, what happens as a result is you just start to move mindlessly, not paying attention to what's working and what's not working. And that's when muscle imbalances, dysfunctions can start to occur. Okay. So it's really important to actually pay attention. A lot of people love to just go to the gym to just smash out a workout and be told what to do. And that's fine. But along the journey, it's so integral to start to learn more about how your body works and how it moves and what happens as a result of that. So we lay a foundation of function. Then on top of that, we start to layer an increased level of flexibility and mobility. It's already important to have a basic level of stability, mobility, and activation in the foundations of function. So we've already got a basic level of that, but the flexibility and mobility is really important to be enhanced from there on out. So that you've got access to more tissue in your body to build strength and conditioning, which I'm going to explain with a practical example in a second. Then we can layer strength and conditioning on top. Then we can increase our power and our speed. Then we can start to learn more advanced skills. All right. So this movement journey, this pyramid, is really valuable to have an understanding of that. If you're finding that you're a person who gets injured regularly or you get a lot of niggles, it's probably because there's something foundationally that's going wrong. And so every time you go to move during some of those exercises or workouts or whatever, something's breaking down because it hasn't moved well and it's continuing not to move well and it's not being addressed. Okay, so that is a really valuable point to take away. Any questions on that movement journey? All right, we're going to do a little test. So what I want you guys to do is doesn't take a lot of room, but I want you to do a forward fold. There's a couple of key points that you need to do or to think about while you're doing this. All right. You'll notice in this image here that the knees are fully locked out. Okay. So it is going to mean that you're not going to be able to reach as far towards your toes as potentially you could if you bent your knees, which is fine. All right. We're trying to use this as a bit of a test, movement test. So it's important to keep your knees as locked out as you can. And it's important to avoid a counter lean. And what I mean by that is the hips going back further than the heels of the feet. Notice how in this image, the ankles and the hips are in line, maybe even leaning forward a little bit into the balls of the feet and the toes. So this is another thing. So we're just going to reach down, touch your toes. I want you to spend about 5 to 10 seconds down there. And I want you to just notice what you feel in this position. Keeping the knees deadlocked, leaning the weight forward into the balls of the feet. Notice what feels tight and try to keep track of where you can reach down to. Can you put your hands on the ground? Can you touch your toes? Are you halfway down your shin? You can come out of that now. When we do movement and we're trying to get an understanding of where we are now and where we want to be, it's really important to do these tests and pay attention while you're doing these tests. What we're going to do is go back into the position. We're going to stretch now. And the stretch that we're going to do is a similar sort of position. So the photo here is the same, but what we're going to do is one leg is going to stay deadlocked and the other leg is going to bend. So you're going to bend one knee and straighten the other. This is called an elephant walk. And we're just going to go from one to the other. So one knee fully locked out, one bent, and then alternating from one side to the other. Okay. So just spend about 2 to 3 seconds in each position and then back to the other side. And we're going to do maybe 10 reps of this. Okay. So one side to the other. All right. Now, staying in the position that you're in, I want you to retest. Reach down to the ground and see if you can notice the difference. So what we're doing here, actually, I'll explain this in a little bit more detail after we do the next exercise. So now what we're going to do is we're going to activate the opposite side of the body. So we just spent time stretching the posterior line, the hamstrings, the calves, the back of the lower body. Now we're going to activate the front of the lower body, the quads. So you can see here in this image that I'm doing this is called a double compression, a double leg compression. Got my hands on the ground, I'm lifting both legs. If this is too challenging for you, you can also do this single leg. Okay, so if you've got the room, you can do it standing as well. So standing on one leg, lifting one leg at a time. Don't stand and lift both legs at a time. Obviously, that might be a bit of a challenge for you. So standing, lifting one leg at a time. or seated, lifting two or one leg at a time. But the important part again is keeping the knee locked out and trying to squeeze the quad. All right. So let's give this a try. I want you to hold each rep for 2 to 3 seconds, and we're going to do about 5 reps on each leg. So if you're cramping in this position, it's not a bad thing, but it does mean the quad is not used to being contracted this much. So maybe some strengthening work required there. Now, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to retest. And what I want you to do when you retest is, as you forward fold, I want you to think about squeezing the quads as you just did in that compression to pull yourself deeper into the movement. Give this a try. What do we notice? Maybe less tension. Maybe no improvement, but you feel the same. Lara, way more flexible, right? So we spent about, in total, maybe 30 to 60 seconds of actual exercise there, right? And you either noticed more flexibility or you noticed less tension and just moving into the position easier. So on just doing that for 30 to 60 seconds of actual movement, your flexibility has improved. Imagine if you did that every day for a week. Imagine if you did that every week for a month. Imagine if you did that every month for a year. What would happen to your flexibility? Now, why is this important? Flexibility is so foundational because we're doing obviously something on the hamstrings at the moment, but you can apply this to any part of the body. So let's say on the left, we've got current accessible range of motion. And on the right, you've got potential range of motion. Now, with the current accessible range of motion, if you were trying to work on strengthening that tissue, you're trying to work on improving the rate at which it contracts and loads and unloads, shortens and lengthens, so that you can increase your speed of running, or so you can improve your agility for some sort of sport, or you're trying to just increase muscle mass. At the moment, the only range at which you're actually increasing strength, agility, speed, endurance, any motor control ability, really, you're only strengthening it in that range. Meaning the little range below it, you're not currently using that. You're not building strength there. You're not building speed there. You're not building agility there. And so what that means is you're only working to half your potential. So by not being flexible enough to get a full range of motion, if you don't have access to a full range of motion, you can no longer build whatever your goal is. So if your goal is building strength, you're only building half strength. If your goal is changing body composition, you're only accessing part of your tissue to burn calories to have an impact on your body composition. You are only using part of your tissue. And if you're only using part of your tissue, you are only affecting part of your body. And you are now going at half speed. Why is this important? When you have set your goals, we all set our goals at the start, what we wanted to work on. When you set that goal, you then started from a movement point of view, thinking to yourself, all right, well, I've got to train. You may or may not have thought how you needed to train. The first step, the foundational step, is understanding how your body functions and then enhancing its function. When you enhance its function, now you're using more tissue. Now you're going to get to your goal faster. And not only that, but if you experience an injury, and let's say that injury, your pain, can you see my mouse moving here? Yeah. Let's say the pain you experience in 3/4 of this accessible range. That means you can only move in this range of motion without pain. And we don't want to move through pain because then our nervous system sends a signal to give you pain earlier. The more you move in pain, the more pain you're going to get. So you've only got this range of motion to move, which means it's going to take a long time to recover. Now, if you're experiencing pain over here in the same range of motion, you've got all this to still move in. which means that injury is going to recover a lot quicker. And because you've got all this range to move in, you're strong there, you're going to mitigate the risk of injury. If you move into this range over here, you're likely to injure yourself because you've got no strength there, you've never been there, your nervous system is not comfortable being there, it does not want you to access that because it does not feel safe there. So likelihood of injuries go up and recovery of injuries increases, recovery time of injuries increases. This is why foundations are important. So from a movement perspective, you've got to be able to enhance your function and your flexibility and your mobility before you can layer on top of it any other goal that you want to achieve. You will get there faster and you will get there safer. So to wrap this up, moving, planning your training, planning your movement, what and how. The what, follow a plan, get a coach. I've got a coach that trains me in some of the things that I'm working on and some of the goals that I have. And I'm going to give you guys the secret to great movement or the secret to achieving results with movement. Okay. I'll give it to you at the end. But you got to follow a plan. All right. And we all go to people who know more than us in certain areas of our lives. We go to an accountant to get our accounts done. Go to a movement coach to get your movement done. You don't always need a coach, but you got to start somewhere. Then you just got to show up. The how. You just got to show up, and you just got to do that for a long time. And you just got to keep showing up. And it doesn't matter if you perform at your absolute highest level. That doesn't matter. Because sometimes we just have to build a habit as a placeholder. You can change the content of the habit over time. It doesn't have to be the perfect habit to begin with. You just need to do something. You just have to have something there that's a habit. And over time, the intensity can get better. The content of what you're doing can be improved. You can refine it more. You can work on it. You can enhance it, all that. But you just got to show up. Okay. And there's only two things that are going to happen if you're showing up every day or 4 or 5 times a week. There's only two things that are going to happen. You're either going to get results, or if you're not getting results, then you know you need to adjust something. So either way, you're getting an answer, right? If you're not getting results, it's like, okay, cool. Well, now I still have a habit that I've built. I just need to change the content of that habit because obviously it's not as effective, or it's not effective enough right now. Great. There's no problem with that. Easy, in theory. G, I'll get to your question at the end. I'll loop back around to that. Any other questions? Let's talk nutrition. Nutrition is a really dividing topic, and there's a lot of experts out there with different beliefs. But I think the one overriding rule that we have to remember is we all have a different body, and everything isn't going to work for one body. So there is so much out there on what is supposed to be the best, right? Meal timing. What's the best meal timing? You should meal prep. Is veganism the best option? Do we track our macros? Do we do low carb? Do we restrict a bunch of stuff? Do we use scales to weigh our food? Do we just eat fruit? Do we not eat fruit? Is there too much sugar in fruit? Do we go vegetarian? Do we track our nutrients? Do we go carnivore? Do we eat whole foods? Are we just supposed to focus on the hydration of our foods? Are we focusing on health types and epigenetic testing to figure out what the best thing will be for us? Are we going to go paleo? Do we count our calories? Do we do intermittent fasting? All this stuff, right? There's heaps, and it's like overwhelming. And we see someone get great results for one thing, but then we don't get the same results for the same thing, because not everything works for the same bodies, right? We need to spend a bit of time working on that. And so there's two overriding principles when it comes to nutrition. You just have to find something that you can adhere to. If you're selecting something like fasting or paleo or low calories or low carb rather, or um, whatever it is, and you find that so restrictive that you can't sustain it, you can't adhere to it, then it doesn't really matter if it works or not, because it's not going to work for you if you don't adhere to it. So if you're finding that whatever you've started, you're 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in of this, 1 week in of this diet, and you're like, "Oh, I'm really struggling to stick to this," it's not for you. It's too restrictive. And then as a result, you're not going to be able to maintain the second principle, which is consistency. So you're not going to elicit the result you're looking for. So when it comes to nutrition, guys, just keep it simple. It needs to be really, really simple. It needs to be something that you can adhere to, that you can do consistently, and you can sustain it for a long period of time to track if it's actually benefiting you. If you don't do it for long enough, if you do it for 2 weeks, that's not enough time to see if it worked or not. You can't justifiably say, "Oh, I tried paleo. Yeah, I did it for 2 weeks, but I just found it didn't lose the weight I wanted it to." Well, of course it didn't. It was never going to over a 2-week period. Paleo might have worked great for someone else because it didn't feel restrictive to them. Right? I'm not a prescriber of any diet where I'm going to say this is the best thing for you. You've got to adjust. You've got to find things that work for you, and you need to do it consistently. So we just need to eat the fundamentals. Follow a plan. Find out what a plan for you is going to look like and follow it. And like overall, core concepts are eating 3 meals a day, eating whole foods, eating things that aren't packaged, consistently eating the same thing, consistently eating the same quantities. That's all stuff that we can agree that is like reasonably healthy for us. And some people will say they will swear by intermittent fasting. Great, it works for them. If they've done it for a long period of time and it feels non-restrictive, then that's fine. But if you can't sustain it, then that changes the story. So you've just got to do it for a long time. And again, it comes back to the same thing as what movement did. One of two things is going to happen. You're either going to get results or you're not. And if you're not getting results, you got information that was valuable because you're like, that doesn't work. I did it for a long period of time and it didn't work. So now I know that I need to change and do something different. Or you got results. Great, you got results. So you don't need to change anything. You know what works for you and you can keep doing that. Set goals. You got to set a goal. You need a direction. If not, you're directionless. You don't have intention. You don't have purpose. You don't know where you're going. It's going to make it very difficult for you to elicit a result that you're looking for. Make it easy. Don't make it hard and then be like, that was too hard. I couldn't do that. Just start with something, whether it's nutrition, whether it's movement, whether it's mindset, whether it's one goal rather than 5 goals, right? And what Erica said in her talk about the nervous system and stress and finding that medium stretch, it's the same with training, right? We're not going to go straight to driving on the freeway on our first lesson. That's not how it works. It's too much for the nervous system to deal. And so then, and we have this culture in training and exercise and movement where we go, it's like, you got to smash yourself. If you're not sore the next day, then it didn't work, right? It wasn't good enough. No pain, no gain. And what this leads to is us breaking our bodies down. So the first time you start exercising, and when you start exercising, it should feel easy. It should feel too easy. It should feel like you've not done a lot. And the next day you'll still probably be sore. And then you go again, but you're not so sore that it changes how you move, because then it's going to create dysfunction and muscle imbalances. If you're moving poorly, then it's going to create issues, right? So you don't want to be you don't want to be so sore. Yeah. If you didn't throw up, you're not pushing yourself. It's crazy, right? That's a crazy thought. It's just ludicrous to think that we should be destroying our system so much. We should be treating it well. We should be nourishing it. We find the medium stretch. We go a little bit harder. We progressively overload. We don't smash our body, because what's important when you're trying to start exercise or movement or even nutrition is consistency over intensity. Intensity is not important when you're starting. It doesn't really matter. You're just trying to form a habit. Are you really going to form a habit if you're so sore that you just do not want to go and you couldn't think of anything worse? No, no habit formation there. It's got to be easy. You just got to start. You just got to move. And at the end of the workout, you should feel like that was too easy. I could have done way more. Great. Should feel like that for a couple of weeks. And then you progressively overload. Make it easy, then make it hard. Don't make it hard at the start. Let your nervous system, exercise is a stress. It's a good stress. But if you go too far, it's a de-stress. All right. So, but nonetheless, it's a stress. And if your system's already stressed and you stress it more, that's a lot for it to deal with. Okay. Get flexible to get strong, powerful, fast, and skillful. You need to get flexible first. You need to have mobility first. You need to have access to full function first. Then you can get strong. Then you can get powerful. Then you can get fast. Then you can get skillful. Okay. The secret, guys, the secret to achieving results is do a good program, good quality program, done for months, for years. That's the secret. There is no shortcut. There is no pill. I'm sorry. I hope I haven't burst your bubble, but you you just have to do a good quality program over a long period of time. You need to be consistent and you need to be patient, and it will come. But that is the secret. There is no shortcut. And if someone tells you there is, it's just because they want to sell something. There is no shortcut. You got to spend time doing it and you've got to be patient. And changing the expectation around that will limit the disappointment that you experience. If you have an expectation, you're going to lose X amount of weight in a short amount of time, then you're going to get disappointed. If you have an expectation that whatever you're trying to achieve is going to take time and going to take consistency, then you're going to feel good about it because you know it's going to take time. You just got to keep chipping away. And the most important thing, guys, is start now. Don't start tomorrow. Don't say next week. Don't say next month. Don't say next year or at this point in time or when I get this or if this happens, then I'll start. No, start now. Set those goals tonight. Make it happen. And that's it, guys. There's the secret to getting great results and physical well-being. So I'm pretty much right on time. I think I'm bang on time. I didn't answer that question. I can answer that question around being seated if we've got the time, Lara, or if not, that's fine too.
We definitely have time. Go for it, Sam.
Cool. So the question was, how does sitting all day affect our foundations and flexibility? So another really important concept to understand is whenever you work a joint in one direction, you want to work it in the opposite direction. If we always spend time with a joint position in flexion, so our hip when we're seated is in flexion. When we're down here, right, this is hip inflection, okay? Which means we need to spend time in hip extension, which would then be in this position. So we are now extended the hip, right? So if you're spending a lot of time seated, my recommendation to you would be for every hour you spend seated, spend a minute in the opposite direction in hip extension. So a very simple hip extension drill is half kneeling. And often I'll just sit at my desk. I'll get rid of my chair. I'll drop one knee to the ground. So I'm in a 90-90, like the bottom of a lunge position. And I'll just sit here extending my hip, gently pulsing my hip back and forward. I'll swap sides and I might do that for a couple of minutes throughout my day if I'm spending a lot of time seated. Whenever we put a joint in a position for a suspended period of time, all the tissue around it is going to shorten on one side of the joint and lengthen on the other side of the joint. All the tissue that's being shortened is going to start to feel comfortable in that shortened position. It's going to get tight. And then when you go to extend it, it's going to let you know. And that's where I experience that signal to our spine and up to our brain. That's tight. right? So the nervous system, what's called our proprioceptors in the nervous system, muscle spindles, they send signals to the spine, to the motor neurons, saying, I'm not used to this position, I want you to contract. So it contracts, and then it has that sensation of tightness. So then all the tissue on the other side of the joint is spending suspended time in a lengthened position, so it doesn't effectively contract. So then when you want to activate it and you want to use it, it doesn't work as well as it should. So you're having a negative impact on both sides of the joint. So you need to balance it out. So if you're spending a lot of time seated, I spend a lot of time in this position and just gently rotating the pelvis, and then swap sides. So that is the example of a specific joint, the hip joint, but it applies to everything. And when you think about it, when we sit at our desk, our elbows are in a flex position. Often our shoulders are rounded and maybe internally rotated. So then when we go to open up this way, it feels very tight. Okay, so think about all joints. Whatever you do with one joint, you need to do the opposite. Same with training. You wouldn't just do all bench press and never do any pull, right? Well, maybe some people do. But okay, I'll put it this way. You wouldn't do bicep curls all on one side and never on the other side, right? It's the same with our anterior to posterior. Why are we working one side of the joint, not the other? Hope that answers your question, G.
Absolutely. And it's now got me thinking about what are some of the stretches I can incorporate throughout the day, because I do a lot of those first thing in the morning. But then if I'm sitting for a long time, I don't take those little breaks. And I'm sure a lot of people who are here now probably are desk jockeys, sitting at the desk a lot of the times, working in corporate settings. So if you are, see if you can start to incorporate some of that into your work life.
Yep.
Day. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to move a bit now. You've got me inspired. Maybe we should do a dance, have a break and do a dance. But before we do, back to you, Lara. What do you want to go for? Any more questions or thoughts?
Yeah, Sam, I really appreciated the concept that you brought about range of motion, and you needed to use more of your tissue to get to your goal faster. I've never heard it put that way before. It was like more like just be flexible or be mobile because it's good for you. Concept that you brought of like, you need to use more of your tissue because that's what's going to help you get to your goal faster. That was a huge gem for me. So thanks for bringing that to the table.
Yeah, no problem. It's definitely a concept that we don't consider enough, I think, and the impact that it has on the rest of our goals. So rather than just, as you said, it's good to be flexible, but there's a lot more benefits than just it's good to be flexible.
So anybody else have any questions for Sam before we wrap up on this physical movement portion of our day here?
I think we should all give Sam a big round of applause. You can do that in the reactions if you like, if you loved his session. And just a shout out, Sam, I'm going to let everyone know about your message to me this morning. I got a message from Sam this morning and he woke up with the dreaded man flu. And so he's been able to present today. He's been able to present today a little bit under the weather and still deliver a ripper of a presentation full of insights, full of tips and tools that we can all take away. So really appreciate you doing that, Sam. And if you're hanging around for anything else, we won't get you to interact. You can just chill.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being here, Sam. All right, everybody, we are actually going to take a lead from Sam here and ask everybody to get up and move your bodies for a couple minutes. We're going to take a quick bio break. So that means bio means anything with your biology.